go back, watch the video, and read the caption. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about inductions. It is such a popular thing and such a huge push from a lot of providers these days. And as a birthing person, you should be really educated on what an induction is, the types of induction, why they're suggesting the induction, benefits, risks, alternatives, all of the things. So don't be afraid to ask those questions with your provider, especially if your goal is to have a low risk, unmedicated, or low intervention type birth, especially if you're wanting a vaginal delivery. In that provider's caption, he states, ask about your Bishop score. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what a Bishop score is. So Bishop score, also sometimes being called a pelvic score, is commonly used to determine the readiness of the cervix for induction of labor. And originally it was mostly for the likelihood, it was used as to determine the likelihood of when a woman might go into labor. So if they had a low Bishop score like a 1, most likely they would not go into labor in at least the next 3 weeks. However, if they had a higher score, such as a 10, they would probably go within the next couple days. But more and more, the Bishop score is being used for determining preparedness for induction. And so what they're looking at is the cervix dilated at all? Meaning, is it open? Is it effaced? So our cervix is long and closed and thick. Effacement is when it starts to thin and gets soft. Station is where is where is your cervix? So your cervix can be let me correct that. That's not correct. So station is where the baby is. So station 3 is high, really, really high, basically not even in the pelvis. Station 2, then there's station 1, and these are negative numbers, -3, -2, -1, 0, baby is like officially engaged into the pelvis, and then of course +1, +2, babies on their way into the outlet of that pelvis, making their way out. So of course, the deeper the baby is into the pelvis, the more likelihood that that cervix will start to thin and open. Consistency, so your cervix naturally, when it's closed and not ready for labor, feels like the tip of your nose. So if you feel that, that's what your cervix feels like when it's closed. Then as it begins to ripen, it'll feel more like the side of your cheek. So that's the softness. And then when it's really, really pliable, ready to just do what it needs to do, if you feel the inside of your cheek, that's what it'll feel like. So just to kind of help you feel like, kind of get an idea of what doctors are feeling for when they're checking your cervix. And then the actual cervix has different positions. So posterior, meaning that it's when you're not ready for labor, your cervix is firm, closed, and it's kind of high up in the back of your pelvis. As it begins to prepare for birth, it will start to move forward to a mid position and then go anterior even further forward. And also in that process, it kind of comes down. So if you've ever had a cervical check or seen someone get a cervical check and the doctor or the provider, because also a midwife could be checking, and they're really having to, dig in there, and they're talking about the cervix is really high, that means it's posterior, and really, really high back, it's not ready for to bring baby forward, basically. And as the body prepares and moves on, it'll slowly come down and forward. So that's all of the different things that are happening in your body. This is also why, as like doulas, we really talk about how dilation is not everything. All of those other factors of what your cervix is doing, the position where baby is, the effacement, the thinning of that cervix, is all important to determine how you are progressing towards labor, or even once you're in labor, how things are progressing. So really don't get caught up in, I'm 4 centimeters, because you could literally walk around 4 centimeters for weeks and nothing happened. But then you could potentially be, a lower amount of centimeters and turn around and be at a 10 in hours. Everybody's body is different, and depending on the number of pregnancies, and just kind of like overall health history, family history, those types of things determine the progression of labor. I'm rambling, but hopefully you got something out of this. Ask about your bishop score when a doctor is talking to you about induction, if that is even something that you want to do, is to have an induction. We can have a whole other conversation about why you might decide not to have an induction. And like I said, go see that previous provider's page for more information about inductions and why you may not want to consider an induction.